am really excited about today's guest. So let me tee the ball up, and then we'll just take a nice hearty swing. She started acting at the age of 2, opposite Robert De Niro in the acclaimed movie Raging Bull. Her great-great-grandfather, George Westmore, he's British, was a wig maker, but also was Winston Churchill's barber. Of course he was. She's a trained equestrian. She's survived, I believe, 2 bouts of cancer. Here was a really interesting fun fact as I did my little Google Wikipedia deep dive. She was diagnosed with Tourette's at the age of 10, and I have it on good authority. She is a trained opera singer. Okay, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much. What more could there be to say about McKenzie Westmore? Girl! Hi. What a thrill this is.
I got crazier stuff than even that, believe it or not.
Like, literally, I find you to be 2 things right off the bat. One of the richest, most deeply fascinating, like highly rooted people I've ever had on this podcast, because there is literally no lack of things to dig into, ask you about, and be like, what? And then also I want to say, just from having heard like the pre-interview you did with my producer, Sarah, who I love, I adore what an open book you are. I just adore it. And because you're very fame adjacent, not even adjacent, obviously you live in a fame world, and given your family's dynasty that really is, like the Houstons or the Barrymores of Hollywood, it's so refreshing that you don't show up with like a mask and a guard and a PR team and like a lot of bullet points about the things you won't talk about. Anyway, hey sis, nice to have you even virtually from your home in Vegas.
Thank you. I can't wait to join you in person one of these days. But thank you for having me on.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Okay, so here's how we begin the podcast. We start with 3 burning questions. And so, are you ready, willing, available, and open to this?
Oh, I am open.
All right, burning question number 1, McKenzie Westmore. How old are you?
I am 49.
Okay. Don't you have a birthday coming up?
Just had it.
Oh, just April, right? It was April.
Yes.
Okay, 49.
Yep.
Number 2. So I remember one day when I stumbled on the fun fact about you getting started in acting at age 2 with Robert De Niro, and I was like, WTF? Like, that's a good icebreaker party fun fact trivia. So yes, we'll get into that story and deeper dive in a little bit, but like, are you still friendly with him? Do you know him, or was that a long time ago? And
no, we actually, my dad just had a thing. We just did like an interview thing with him just a couple months ago, and I wasn't able to get over there. And he was like, "How's McKenzie?" He calls me Baby McKenzie. He still calls me Baby McKenzie.
Oh my gosh, how cool! Oh my gosh. Okay, number 3. Is it true your parents, again, who are still alive, been married 60 years, the family dynasty we will dig into, because is it your family or your dad or George Westmore? Who has the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
It's the family. So the family collectively, yes.
I mean, that's so for those of you watching who are like, who is this lady? Oh, trust me, we are going to dive into, because like there's some stuff to talk about. But the third question is it true that your parents heard you humming the theme song to Star Trek and then started you in opera lessons?
Yes, that's true. They thought that the show, it was a little bit late at night, and they were like, how is McKenzie watching Star Trek right now? And I was 6 or 7 years old, and I was singing the theme song, and they came in my bedroom, and they're like, oh my God, we need to put this kid in singing lessons. So yeah, I ended up training with the head mistress of UCLA around 8, and just continued from there. My goal was to go to Broadway. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, because I hear that you were accepted into Juilliard. For sake, McKenzie. You're no sloth. You really,
No.
you're pretty good, kid. I think it turned out pretty well. Wow. So you wanted to go on Broadway, And act and sing, or you wanted to do like professional opera? Oh, act and sing. Okay.
Broadway, you should see. So I have a gym, and everywhere in the gym, because I was so determined as a little girl, my parents supported that. They took me to Les Mis, I want to say 25 times. They took me to Phantom of the Opera 30 times. I have Michael Crawford's mask he wore on Broadway in my office and my gym. No joke. Like one of 5 masks that he wore.
Shut up. Did you buy it at auction or something?
No, my parents. They surprised me one Christmas when I was 12. Yes. I know. I was like,
wow.
That was like,
wow.
Yeah.
And all I got was like a Barbie doll, but you got a Phantom of the Opera mask. Okay, keep going.
So my gym is covered in playbills, signed playbills. So Les Mis, that was my dream. Les Mis and Phantom were my 2 dreams. I actually studied with the one of the main trainers to Phantom of the Opera. Kind of blanking on the name right now. That'll come back to me. But I trained with the people that trained all of that cast, and Sarah Brightman and all of the main people, and that was my goal. I really was wanting to do that. So when we talked about Juilliard, yes, I was accepted to Juilliard, but also the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music,
right.
And their rate of transition to Broadway was like 95%. So
wow.
I was like, when I got accepted, I was like, yes, this is it.
So now for anybody watching, I don't know if you know, this is my personal small claim to fame. These podcasts are available wherever American Airlines flies. If you've ever been on board an American Airlines flight, please do stream this podcast. Anyway, I say that because the broader reach of who watches these is not just like QVC fanatics and fans and shoppers, right? So McKenzie has an amazing cosmetic beauty, like special effects, tricks to the silver screen that she's now, and I mean this lovingly, like watered down and made relatable to us lay people in a makeup line here at the Q. But for people watching that may not even know the Westmore makeup brand and QVC and whatever, let's go back. Let's explain to a total kindergartner what this Westmore name is and who you are. So let me start with you are essentially, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like really you are a kind of Hollywood royalty. Your great grandfather was George Westmore, British man. Is it true he was, along with being a wig maker and I presume like a makeup artist, he was Winston Churchill's barber?
Yes, he was the wig maker to the royal court. My whole family's from the Isle of Wight. So he was the wig maker to the royal court, and he was Winston Churchill's, not only his barber, but his best friend. And he took care of everything he needed. So I would love to know some of the stories that he had. There's a lot of like drama with my great grandfather
his son.
If you want me to tell it? I can.
Yeah, why not?
So
wait, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
So great grandfather was George Westmore.
Great grandfather.
Okay, fine. Great grandfather, George Westmore, 1917. He's not only Winston Churchill's barber, but he's a wig maker, a makeup artist, and he begins what is now Hollywood royalty dynasty. He starts the first Hollywood makeup studio. And from there, like your father, so many of your family members, uncles, like followed in the footsteps that he began. True or false? And then, yes, give us all the dirt.
True. So in a nutshell, so he came to America, early 1900s, opened up a wig shop on Sunset Boulevard. And this was at a time of silent films when actors did their own hair and makeup. And it was during Three Musketeers. Adolphe Menjou shaved off part of his mustache, didn't know what to do, ran into my family's wig shop, and I believe it was my great uncle actually that sewed together a little piece of hair lace wig. And he sewed it on to Adolphe Menjou, and that was the birth of a makeup artist in Hollywood. There was no such thing as a Hollywood makeup artist until that moment, because that's when the director said, okay, actors screw everything up. We need somebody else to be in charge of these things. So that was the birth. And from there, my family invented things like the individual false eyelashes, translucent powder. I have a photo of my grandfather on the set of Gone with the Wind with the very first makeup airbrush compressor that he invented.
Way.
They invented, you know how we shape our eyebrows, that 3-point system that every
Yeah.
eyebrow company used? Yeah, they invented that. They invented the shaped faces and how we should place our makeup depending on if we have an oval shape or a square shape.
Did
so
you guys?
so many things that fit? Yeah.
I mean, that is an amazing historical account. But did they patent or trademark any of this stuff? Like, do you guys get any? Yes. Holy
Well,
shit.
I don't know. That I don't know.
Oh, okay,
because
fine.
I don't, that is a good question. I'm actually going to find out about that later because that is a good question.
Because I mean,
the
look at all
Westmore
this
name is
stuff
on
that
it
you're.
all.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. So that is. I'm open to dirt, and I'm here for however long you want to share
Okay,
it.
okay.
Was there more on George Westmore? So it's 1917. He comes over here. He's sewing on mustaches, and he starts the first makeup studio. And was he a makeup artist or just a wig maker?
Mostly a wig maker, from my understanding. He was not doing the makeup side yet. So as far as the dirt goes, and this is, I mean, it's heartbreaking because there's one of two stories. I don't know historically. I've got to find out exactly which one it is, but there's so much back and forth on what the truth is. So as rumor has it and story has it, one version I heard was my great-grandfather was so jealous at the stardom his sons were getting because, now this is factual. This is all factual. The facts are my great-grandfather was not the kindest of men. In England, he would tie up my great-uncles to trees if they had been misbehaving. He actually tied them into the storefront of his wig shop, and he had the two twins compete against each other to see who could make the wig for the royal court the fastest through the night. One of the twins being weaker, the one twin being stronger, knowing that his brother would die if he had to take the beating, he fell asleep. So the stronger one switched the wigs so that he took the beating because he gives me chills. He knew he would survive. He knew he would live through the beating. So
What an
they
extraordinary story.
this has got to be like a movie or something someday. This is like a Netflix something. They come to America. I don't know if it was a matter of my great-grandfather either was jealous of his son's stardom because they were the top dogs of Hollywood. One ran RKO, one ran Warner, whatever the big studios were of that era. So it was either that he was jealous or he was trying to get his wife's, who left him's attention. He drank mercury and committed suicide. And it took him a week to pass.
To die.
It took
Oh,
him a
gosh.
week. Horrible, miserable, painful death. Anybody that knows what mercury does to the internal organs. And she never showed up. His ex-wife never showed up. And he died without the fame and glory of his sons. And it went on from there. So,
and those sons were your dad's one. Well, let me start over. One of those sons was your dad's father, correct?
correct.
And your dad, Michael Westmore, who's still alive. Mm-hmm. So he's won multiple Emmys for the, I believe, 18 years that he worked on Star Trek, that whole franchise. He is a trained, obviously gifted special effects makeup artist. Did he win an Oscar for that amazing movie, Mask?
So he won an Oscar for the movie Mask, and he won 9 Emmys across his career, mostly for Star Trek, and he does have the Guinness Book World Record for the most nominations in the category.
That is unbelievable. And does he still work to this day, or is he retired? How old is he?
He's retired. He's in his 80s. So we keep trying to get him to paint or do something, but no, he's retired.
And I hear that as a kid, instead of going to the playground, you would go to work with your dad. Give me an example of like how cool or how normal that was. Like, was work on a Hollywood lot? Was it inside like a crazy creative laboratory where he's making up actors? Like, what does a day of shadowing dad when you're 8 years old or something look like?
Well, First of all, I was the chubby, fat kid, ugly kid in school. So I was beaten up almost every day, I feel. So I was so like grateful that I could not go to the playground and go to dad's work. So it was a sanctuary for me to begin with. Then it was that moment where my mom hated going to the studio because it was so boring. But to me, it wasn't. Like we would drive through the gates of Paramount Studios, and I remember as a little kid, it was always so cool because we'd pull up and they'd just go, "Oh, hey, Marion," and they let us through. And I was like, oh, we don't need ID? Like, what? She doesn't have a license? This is so
We're
cool.
famous.
Like, we're famous. Yeah, like, who is my dad? So it was always this anomaly to me growing up. And I would just wander around Paramount Studios. I would go up to my dad's. He had a laboratory. He had an office. And at that time when he started Star Trek, it was the end of an era because my dad would sketch an alien. He would go to the lab, create the rubber, and do all of that. And he would go to set and apply makeup. So it was it's funny because when I went on to do Face Off, which we'll talk about later, everything became compartmentalized. So you had somebody that sketched, you had somebody that worked at the lab, and you had somebody that applied on set, where my dad did it all.
Did it all.
So I would
Did
get
he
to
work?
bounce
So
around with him.
he worked with a very young William Shatner, and I mean all of the iconic. I grew up watching Star Trek. I mean, so I take it that was his domain.
Well, he started with Next Generation.
Oh, got
So
it.
that
Okay, got it.
was
Got it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yes.
So when I was growing up, the people that babysat and took care of me were, oh my goodness, Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Brent Spiner. Actually, I remember him giving me singing lessons because he was very big on Broadway. Denise Crosby was on Star Trek, and she would give me acting lessons. LeVar Burton, I remember just sitting in like the dark shadows on the ground one day, and I remember LeVar across the way just screaming Mac, and I was like, oh, he knows me. Like
That's your nickname, right? Mac. They call you Mac.
Mac, yeah, usually. Well,
And
it's
so-
funny because for the longest time I didn't like Mac, but it's now my nickname.
I think it's darling. And so this sounds so sizzly and glamorous and exciting. Is it lucrative? Like, were you guys highly well off as a child? Like, did you live in a big Hollywood mansion with a big gate? I mean, was that the life or no?
It's funny that you actually asked this because this has been the bone of contention with my siblings and myself because they're 10 years older than me. So I came along and I was like an only child, and my parents were not doing well when they were born. They were like scrounging to get just diapers for my sister and brother.
So
when I
dad
came
wasn't
along-
big famous yet.
No.
There were no Emmys yet. Right. Okay. So he's still building his career.
Correct. By the time I came along, the career was built. So I didn't ask to be born 10 years later. It just happened. So I got lucky.
And so does that mean that there were on weekends dinner parties with majorly famous people? Does that mean, like, what does lucky look like?
You know, my parents were always very chill and low key. There wasn't, they didn't do the dinner parties. They weren't like very social people. If anything, it would be like, okay, Cher's coming over today because she's in mask and she needs to have some makeup tests done. Or Eric Stoltz is going to be over today, or Robert De Niro is going to come. So it was more that, you know, these celebrities would come and just hang out. It wasn't like dinner parties per se, because weekends were always the family. And if anything, you know, my parents, I remember I'm that very type A personality, and I was maybe like 10, 11, 12, and I had gotten mono for the third time because I hadn't gotten straight A's, and I was such a little stress bug. And my parents felt bad because my whole class went on a trip to the East Coast, and it was New York, Washington, and Virginia. And I was so upset because I'm obsessed with Virginia Williamsburg. I'm obsessed with Broadway, and I missed out on all this. So my parents, once I was recovered and better, they created a trip for us to go on, but it focused more on Broadway and Virginia and like a day of Washington, D.C., where the school was like a whole week. They're like, no, let's have fun. So it was more stuff like that. That was the life I had with them.
And so that's a beautiful segue into kind of how you got in, how you grew up being gifted at singing and the opera lessons. And I've read the quote about how instead of going into therapy, no doubt, for being bullied and beat up, and as you call it, like a chubby kid. And I get it. I was the outsider too. Instead of going to therapy, you would go to acting class. So you explain how you got your start with Robert De Niro acting, because for anyone watching, ultimately where this is going is, McKenzie was on she was on several soap operas, but I think the one that we remember the most is as Sheridan Crane for like, in Passions. And you started that when you were 19 years old, and there was anorexia, and that was a big break, but that was probably like a really big seismic moment in your developmental life. Yes. But take me back to how a girl that says she ended up being chubby and fat and bullied gets started in acting at the age of 2.
So one thing I forgot to mention was before even with Robert De Niro and Raging Bull, when I was 1, there was a Bull detergent commercial. And I had to walk for it, though. And my mom was determined. And so my mom would sit on one end, my sister would sit on the other end of the house. And they had, I loved lemon heads as a kid. So they'd have lemon heads, and I got a few steps in, and that's all it took. And so I got the Bull detergent commercial. And it just was something that, we just did. And then Robert De Niro would come over to the house. I was around 2 or 3 years old, and he would come over because my dad's lab was attached to the house. So I grew up next to him with like the big ovens and the rubber running and all this stuff and makeup, and like there'd be severed heads and fake blood, and it just that was Westmore life. Like that's all we knew. So when Robert De Niro would come over to get his makeup tests done, he would babysit me, basically. My mom would be cleaning the house. My dad would be running the rubber and running the prosthetics. And there was nobody to watch me except Robert De Niro. And he was a family friend. And so I don't know this, but my parents have told me that my mom always told my dad, he's going to ask for her to play his daughter. And my dad was like, no, he'd never do that. Well, sure enough, after a couple months, he went to my parents and said, I've got a rapport with her. It'd be silly to not have her play my daughter in the movie because it'd be so easy. So when you see the pool scene with Kathy Moriarty, Robert De Niro, and this little girl with long curly black hair, that's me.
Wait. Okay, I was gonna say, wait, you don't have curly black hair. Okay, just making sure. It's okay. Yeah. We're all living in a world where God messed up and meant to make us blonde, but we're correcting it now after the fact. Okay, so then you're taking acting lessons, and I want to fast forward a little because yes, you end up at 19 years old. I think I read this correctly, landing your first soap opera job, and like just describe that elation. You're 19, by the way. Are you in New York or LA? Are soap operas lucrative? And then can we just like pinnacle it with the anorexia? Because I bet the chubby kid bullying and then being thrust into that spotlight kind of you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, with you is putting it lightly, I would say, for what I dealt with. And I'm just now starting to come more forward with it and talk about it because I feel free in some ways. So I feel the freedom. It was an amazing moment. I'll never forget. I started auditioning for that show in 1999, just like trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. No, I'm sorry, 98. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. I'd been accepted into the colleges. So I was getting ready to pack things up. No, I'm sorry, I hadn't been accepted yet. I was auditioning, trying to like figure stuff out. I'd done one role on the show. It was a television show of Weird Science. And they had their like, quote, girl of the week. And I was a singing pirate maiden. And so that was like
of
my
course
first,
you were.
like, of course I was. Why wouldn't you be a singing pirate maiden? Who doesn't do that?
That's so good.
The stories I got, Shawn. Oh my God. So I do that, but just things weren't clicking. They just weren't like hitting. And my dad said to me, he's like, look, I talked to some of the actors of Star Trek, and they think, maybe you go back to college. Maybe, maybe you just don't get out of line, but just keep plugging away and go study acting. And I know this is what you do. So I was like, yeah, okay, you got a point. So I started to look into the college stuff, and meanwhile auditioned for the show Passions. I first went out for the role of Gwen Hotchkiss, and I remember seeing Susan Lucci's daughter walk through the auditioning room, and I was like, and people are whispering, going, oh yeah, she got the role of Gwen. I'm like, well, what the am I doing here? Like,
right.
seriously,
Ruh-roh.
like, why am I even here? Ruh-roh, exactly. But they kept auditioning me, and they finally turned around and said, we know you're here for Gwen, but we see you as Sheridan, and we know it's an older character, but we see you as this role Sheridan Crane. I was like, all right, whatever, cool. So I started to read it, and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool, like American Princess. And then it didn't click for me at the time, but the role started off as Princess Diana's best friend. And that was something that, yeah. So I mean, if you want me to tell that, I can tell you that story. But
No, yeah,
I
no,
get
please.
Okay, so I get in, I do, I mind you, I'd gone through an issue of feeling like, yes, I'd gone through the fat kid stuff. I was already like teetering with the eating side or not eating. So I'd already lost weight, but I was stuffing my bra, and I'd stuffed my bra for the auditions. So as this auditioning was going on over 6 months, I made the decision. I went to my mom and I said, what do you think about breast implants? And she was like, you do you, I support you, whatever you want. So I went and had breast implants. Well, I get the phone call. I remember sitting depressed in my parents' kitchen a week out of surgery, just like, what am I doing with my life right now? And which really at 19 we should not be asking. Like, we should
1,000%.
We
Yes.
should be. I just was so like in my head of like work, and you know, I just so many demons in my head already at a young age.
Yeah.
That I remember getting the phone call. It was actually wardrobe saying, so we need you to come in for fitting. And I'd already done a role on Star Trek Voyager. I played Ensign Jenkins in Star Trek Voyager. So I was like, why do they need me to come back in? I already have my Starfleet uniform. Like, they already know my sizes. And she was like, no, Sheridan Crane. I was like, excuse me? And then my agent, she couldn't get to me in enough time. Then she called. Then the phones just started ringing off the hook. And I broke down sobbing. And they said, not only do you have the role, we need you to go to France in a week. So I am ecstatic. I'm scrambling in to make sure I've got my passport. But then at the same time, I'm like, oh, I just had surgery. What do I do? And I just did it. I got on the plane. I did end up busting a stitch while I was in France. Called my surgeon from France. What do I do? As soon as I got back, he had to like put me back under and just like fix some things, and went right to work. And that was the beginning of Sheridan Crane in the town of Harmony. And it was an incredible start. It was I can't say anything bad for that because it put me on the map. It's just what happened from there was a little rough.
So tell me about, are soap operas lucrative, or is it really just the way you break in, but they're not lucrative? I mean, Susan Lucci, God bless this amazing woman. Like,
right?
She is icon. But surely, I mean, I guess at her level, for sure, there's major money. But I mean, was this a lucrative and also a fulfilling? But I've heard you have to digest so many pages of lines just for, right? So what just quickly tell me, because I'm so fascinated by that there's such a cult following. But I mean, I grew up with Luke and Laura on General Hospital. Luke and Laura. I mean, so go.
Yeah, you get it. And I will say now, I don't think soap operas are they're definitely not what they used to be. Yeah. Back then, early 2000s, yes. They were still at the peak and the pinnacle of, like, you hit it big. And I remember I got a 3-year contract. They were toying with the idea on Star Trek of bringing me back as the love interest for Ensign Kim, but it was like an in the air kind of thing. So I'm given this 3-year contract at 19, 20 years old. I'm like, well, of course I'm going to take this. So that was it was amazing. I mean, to get a 3-year contract on a soap opera in that era when it was very lucrative and doing very well. It was a dog eat dog world, because if you could memorize lines, your storyline kept going. And I have a photographic memory, so I was very fortunate that I could keep going at that level, and I would memorize probably 50 pages a day.
Wow.
There was one time in the early days that I had to memorize 99 in one night, and that was rough. We had Robert Horry as a guest star. Yeah, we had Robert Horry as a guest star. They figured out the night before he couldn't act. All my scenes were with him, and they just gave me every single one of his lines and my lines. So I cried, but I got through it, and I ended up doing, it just was, yeah.
What's the Princess Diana story?
Oh my God. Okay, so they first wrote my character in France as Princess Diana's best friend. I was the American princess as Sheridan Crane. So I didn't think it at the time filming. It wasn't until later watching it. But as I, what the scenes that I filmed were, I was in France. I'm mourning her death. When I came back to America to continue filming, they would film flashbacks then of me as Sheridan Crane on the phone with Princess Diana going, oh, I can't wait to see you and Dodie. You're on your way over to see me. This is amazing. We're going to have such a great time. I can't wait to meet him. And then getting the phone call that Princess Diana had died. Oh, and boy. My character then being in France and being the American princess best friends to Princess Diana, they actually had me drive the same tunnel that Princess Diana died in. They had my character die and get in a car crash because of the paparazzi in that same tunnel. I broke out in hives. It was so disturbing to me.
Oh, wow.
They had me go to the white light, and as I'm going to heaven as Sheridan Crane, they have Princess Diana's voice going, Sheridan, it's not your time. Go back. Go back.
Oh my gosh, this is so epic. This is so epic. This is so soap opera. I love it. Like the evil twin, you come back from the dead. I mean, it's amazing. Yes. Sheridan, go back. Go back.
Go back. It's not your time.
It's so good. Wait, and then
Shawn, I'm no joke, really quick. I remember watching this with my parents going, oh my God, my career just started and it just ended. Like that was it. I'm done. I'm done. I can't leave the house.
Good.
I'm done.
Wait, did you not do some sort of guest appearance on the show Friends? When was that? And what of the actors, if not all of them, did you work the closest with?
So yes, I did that while I was on Passions. I played myself because it was when Joey was up for a soapy. And I'm the one like announcing who's nominated. And so I worked with him, Matt LeBlanc. Jennifer Aniston, I got to say, was a sweetheart. She was amazing.
For real? Oh, wow.
For real. I am so team Aniston, and for multiple reasons. But yeah, Jennifer Aniston is
wow.
phenomenal.
And did you work with Matthew Perry at all, or he wasn't as much part of your plot line?
He was. I met him briefly, and he was also very sweet. One of those people you could tell was, troubled, but he was very sweet. Struggling, yeah.
All right, we like to take a break in this podcast to give you a little OO outfit of the day, OOTD. I'm just not cool and trendy and young, so whatevs. Basically, we're telling you about the awesome thing I'm wearing. Jenny Garth. This is weird to say, although maybe not. Anything going on up here in the sleeve. It could be a puff. It could be a ruffle. I don't care what it is. Like, I am all in. I'm leaning in and then some. And how pretty is this sweet color? What you cannot see is there's elastic at the bottom in the hem, which, I'm not going to lie, is very trendy. A lot of designers are doing it now, and I'm here for it. So if you like it, click, buy, purchase. And then when we see each other out and about randomly in an airport or somewhere, we can be twinning, because that sounds lovely. Okay, I want to bounce for a second, if you'll forgive my bouncing.
Yeah.
I want to bounce to a couple things in your health life that I'm fascinated by, and I know you're an open book about. But this one really caught me off guard, just because, wow, I mean, talk about not seeing that one coming. So I was reading that you were diagnosed with Tourette's at the age of 10? Wow. Like, I don't know much about it. As you've been interviewed many times about this, you've been honest about all the stigma behind Tourette's, because, we in pop culture and in movies, like, we only see one version of Tourette's, and it's like people like erratically swearing without any. So, but what exactly is Tourette's, and what did they diagnose you with, and how did you even get diagnosed? Like, this is, wow. Just wow.
So I was doing things as a 10, 11, 12-year-old that just weren't making sense. And my mom, I mean, and she'll probably hear this, and Mom, I'm sorry, but this was the truth. But my mom's an amazing mom, by the way. She would get upset that I would do things that, like, I do movements or make noises, and she'd be like, stop, what are you doing? But she finally then took me to a doctor, a neurologist, because you do have to go through a series of tests to like get a formal diagnosis. And we weren't looking for we just wanted to know what the hell was going on. Why was I making these noises? Why was I moving weirdly? So the time my Tourette's was worse than it is now. However, you typically grow out of it by the age of 18. I'm a rare case that it did get a little bit more worse as I got older. So I'm good at controlling it to a certain degree, but when I'm like on my own, I'll sometimes even go so far as to almost have a seizure because I'm able to release my tics so bad. So it's been a tough go as the years have gone on because
That sounds
as a
really
kid,
scary, Mac.
it is. And I will be honest with you, Shawn, in 2020, I got hit with, between the stress of everything, COVID, my Tourette's, PTSD, it all collided, and I actually ended up having a full-blown seizure, and I feel horrible. And I don't know if this is why my son went medical, but it happened in front of him.
Oh,
And
gosh.
all I remember is just going down in the hallway, and that was it, Los Angeles. And my husband rushing to get me and taking me, getting me to the sofa. And it's become this kind of thing, though, now. The family knows what to do. I feel it coming on. We know what's happening. It's not a seizure. It's this culmination. But going back to the Tourette's as a kid, I would just move differently. And the big thing for me to this day is the eye blinking. People think I wear contacts or there's something wrong with my eyes because you'll see me blink my eyes a lot or like go like this, you know. I'll wiggle my nose, I'll stretch my jaw, I'll furrow my brow. As far as the vocal, squeaking. And that comes out more when I'm cooking or if I'm like severely stressed. So sometimes like when my husband and I are like calming down at the end of the day and like I am just, my day has been stressful and I'm just done, I'll be like laying on his chest. I'm like, he's like, okay, and there's that. It's volume up on the TV.
And are you able, so are you saying you are able to control it or not? And I'm curious to know if it has, this is going to sound really weird. Have you, as you've gotten older and you said it's gotten worse, has it become more of a burden or has it become a little bit of a silver lining that it's a part of you that you feel like has made you stronger in a way? Do you know what I'm going for here? But anyway.
Completely. I totally get where you're going. And it's definitely for me a silver lining. There are definitely days where it's like, oh, why do I have this? But in the crux and the big universal side of it, it's a blessing because it makes me who I am. It's part of who I am. I feel like I'm a story for others because yes, we see Balin out loud, who God bless her, she's amazing and she's been this great face of Tourette's. She's a very small percentage of Tourette's.
Right.
Majority of Tourette's people are more like me.
Yeah.
Where it's minor little things.
Minor
that
tics.
you'd be like, well, yeah, like why are you doing that? Or
it's a nervous system disorder, correct? But there's no treatment for it.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, they say there are different things, and there are different things to help with the stress load. And when you ask about controlling it, I can, but the payoff to that is that I will pay for it at the end of the day when I'm by myself. In fact, there was a great neurologist, that phenomenal neurosurgeon, who could do surgery like nobody's business, but when he was done with his surgeries, he'd lay in the back room of his surgical center and just shake because we as Tourette's people can hold on to our tics. Like when I come on QVC, I'm like put together. The second I step off, I'm like, my eyes are going.
Yeah, like at some point the dam is going to break.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. The other thing, gosh, there's so much I want to talk to you about, and I know we're up against a hard out. Incidentally, I hope you don't mind me saying it is health related. You've got to call with a doctor. So I'm going to stay on the health topic for a second. And this one just broke my heart, given that I don't know if you remember this, but I do remember at one point in time you and I having like a really precious, intimate discussion about adoption. And of course, you have your son Maddox from your first marriage. He's now what, 20 something? Just 20?
20.
20.
Just turned 20, yeah.
But there's this very, unsettling and heartbreaking story about you having a miscarriage on an airplane. And I just wonder if you would share a little bit about your heart for motherhood and that.
Absolutely. Shawn, like we said, I'm an open book. I tell it all now. I've learned to not hold back. There's no reason. And if it helps somebody, that's all I care about. When I was 23, roughly 23, 24, was pregnant. On Passions, the producers were telling me I was fat. I needed to lose weight. was very stressful. I couldn't say that I was pregnant yet. 'Cause, you know, you wait till the 3-month mark. But I was struggling. I was mentally struggling, and I was struggling to eat and keep up. And finally, then I was at the 4-month mark. I had finally told them, but the damage was kind of already mentally done and physically done. I was flying home from New York to Los Angeles. My seat was in the back of the plane, and I miscarried the entire 6-hour flight in the bathroom, in turbulence, 6 hours. Got off the plane, went straight back to work, went back on set.
Wait, did you know what was
happening?
happening? Like you knew that you were, yeah.
I knew it happened. And in that meantime, they had written into my storyline as Sheridan that Sheridan was pregnant, but then that I was going to be acting out a miscarriage. So I remember getting back to work. Oh, it gets worse, Shawn. I got back to work, and I'll never forget them pouring fake blood on my crotch. And having to act through that. And in the midst of all this, as I got off that plane, I then go back to work. I passed out on set because the miscarriage hadn't finalized.
Yeah.
I had to be rushed to the emergency room. I had an emergency DNC.
Yeah.
No anesthesia, nothing.
Oh!
And
Me.
So you know the pain,
Yep.
the visual.
Yep.
I remember my OBG at the time almost slapped me across the face and said, I need you to stay awake with me as I'm watching this tube next to me, everything, my baby just going. And that was
This is so horrific. This is so horrific.
So then I go back to work, and through those months following, you'd think there'd be something almost like cathartic about the miscarriage of the character and my own, but no, they had my character give birth.
Oh,
3 months after my miscarriage, I'm holding somebody else's baby.
Horrible, terrible, PTSD.
This is why I have some of the mental issues I have today. To this day, I have such a hard time flying to begin with, but it was so difficult passing that baby back off to the real mother and going back to my dressing room, and I break down crying, going, where's mine? Why don't I have my baby? I'm 8 months now post all of this, 4 months. And it was just devastating. It was mentally devastating.
So listen, I'm mindful of the time, and we've got to get you out of here in 8 minutes, and there's a lot I want to speed talk right now, but will you come back to this podcast? Because there are things we haven't even touched on. Your beautiful husband, Patrick, who you met on the set of Sci-Fi's Face Off, which I think you did for, 13 seasons, hosting that?
Yes, yeah.
And it was like a special effects makeup Hollywood show, like a reality contestant competition show. I haven't even asked you about, because I love it when people are open about plastic surgery, because I am too. And you have had a whole journey that you even were in People magazine with Dr. Paul Nassif from the Botched reality show, talking about like your excessive use of fillers, and then how he had to undo all that. And obviously you look wildly half your age. So, wow. Okay. So there's a lot we need to talk about, but now is not the time. But a couple final things I want to do. Is it true you're a trained equestrian?
Yes. That was something I also loved growing up. My mom every summer would put me into horse camp, and I became trained in gymnastics and circus tricks on horseback. Crazy. There's something you don't have on your paperwork, because it's something I forgot to mention yesterday. This is another crazy side note we could talk about another time. I was asked to join the female boxing Olympic team in 2009, 2010, because I was scouted in a boxing ring in Van Nuys, California.
Wait, you were also boxing? Yeah. Is there anything you can't do? This is insane.
It's weird. I don't know if it's insane. It's just weird, Shawn. I feel weird.
And by the way, honestly, between all of we've talked about, how are you not more up? Because already being a child star, the legends are legendary, right? You are so delightful, so normal, so well-adjusted. Are you in therapy? Like, how are you so, just great?
You're so sweet. I owe it to my parents. I really owe it to my parents. My mom was very much about being a mom and on top of watching. She never left me alone on a set. I ended up doing the same thing with my kid. Whenever he was never. We were all very adamant about that. Anybody in the industry. So I owe it all to my parents, and now I owe it to my husband, because as I put it with him, you know, he's taught me how to enjoy life. He's taught me how to enjoy food. Being European, he's taught me that bread and butter are phenomenal and amazing. So I owe it a lot to my husband as well, because I feel he's taken on this burden. So there are nights where I'll just say, sweetheart, I'm sorry. You're such an amazing man. He's like, you're amazing. You don't see it. You don't get it. And we were brought together for a reason. You
so
help
true.
me as much as I help you.
Yeah,
So we do. We're a team.
Patrick is French Greek. And when they got married at some like a winery in California, that like a giraffe photopalmed them, and so like this giant. It's just such a good story. Again, for another podcast. All right, we end this podcast with 3 burning questions. Here we go. McKenzie Westmore, what is your last meal on this earth? Please be specific.
Ooh. God, that's a tough one. It'd have to be a combination of sushi and Rebellion Pizza, which is a pizzeria around the corner.
Okay, first of all, I'm going to need to know what kind of sushi. I need major specifics. Spicy tuna, spicy salmon,
okay.
hand roll. What are we talking?
Spicy tuna.
Yep,
Spicy
me too.
tuna hand roll,
Yep.
for sure. Pizza, it would be what I always knew is, they don't call it this, but I always knew it as the white knight, where it's the ricotta with the sauteed spinach and artichoke hearts. Oof.
Wait, is Rebellion only there in Vegas? Because it sounds somewhat okay. It's what's
Come
so
visit.
great about it. What I am going to come visit. You should know that.
It is homemade. It's literally 5 minutes around the corner from me, but you know it's going to take 45 to 60 minutes before you can go pick it up, because they are slammed and they make it right there in house. It's the best thing I've had outside of New York.
Oh. By the way, number 2 burning question as we close: buried or cremated?
Oh, cremated.
Yeah?
Oh no, I do not want to be buried. Oh no, I'm terrified. I watch those documentaries on the ringing bell and
yeah. Well, plus you're from that British heritage that dates back to that time frame when like they did have the bell with the string up through the grave, right? So does
probably a past life for me.
Right? So for your family heritage and the British background and all of that, is there like and then of course the Hollywood dynasty, is there like a family mausoleum or plot somewhere, or no, it's not like that?
No, it's not like that. You know, what's sad is that the great uncles, they all kind of dissipated. They got in a huge argument and they all dissipated. It almost destroyed the family name. And it wasn't until my dad, and even then with his brothers, there was some fighting there. But my dad, I gotta say, and I'm not saying this because I'm his daughter, but he was the one that held it together and kept things going. He was the one that, talk about breaking the sins of the father, that was my dad. He broke those sins, and he's one of the few, I hate to say, I don't want to say they're bad men, but he's the only one that didn't have affairs. He's the only one that's not an alcoholic. He's a good, solid man. So I had this amazing father figure growing up that just helped build this new generation of Westmores. So when you talk about mausoleum, there should be, but sadly there just was there's so much dirt and tea and drama that happened.
And family fracture, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But honestly, I write now as I look at you and mentally digest the past hour of what you've shared. I know exactly why you're so well adjusted and lovely and normal and honest and authentic, and you know, it's because of your parents. Clearly 1000%. Your parents, both of them, not just one, sound like extraordinary people given the life that they led and the career that he had and the circles that you ran in. And there could have been so many up off ramps, right? But anyway,
completely. And that's it. They never treated us like that. They never raised my siblings, and I like that.
Final burning question. Let's just linger on a ramp. Okay, let's say, because you're still acting, you were just in a Hallmark Channel movie. If there were one in a dream state, God comes down from heaven, you can act or star against one current day leading man. Like what is it? Who is it? What are we doing? Like it's your dream role, and now's the time, baby. It's all you.
I'd have to be singing. It'd have to be like a Moulin Rouge kind of thing. I mean, it has to be. And I think Brad Pitt and Sam Elliott need to be in there somewhere.
Wow, I like it. I
That's my
mean, none too shabby choices. Outstanding. I really love you. I'm going to say I'm an old soul, and I don't know why I'm saying this because I'm not even sure I believe in reincarnation. But I feel like in a past life, I've known you because I find it so effortless to talk to you, connect with you, understand you. It's just lovely. It's such a pleasure. I'm sorry you couldn't be here in person. In the next podcast, we'll talk about, the next iteration of your health challenges because that's part of why you can't come to QVC as much right now. But you're just sheer joy, so well adjusted, and gosh, I can't wait to do part 2. So thank you, McKenzie.
I'm all for it. I'm excited to do part 2. You tell me when. And I love and adore you. I feel the same way. I feel like I've known you for lifetimes.
Oh, God bless you, my friend. Say hi to Patrick. And until soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.